Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Akram Zaoui. I'm very happy to welcome you to this episode of the series of interviews that we will be conducting in the framework of the 13th Atlantic Dialogues. The Atlantic Dialogues, as you know, are the main, or we like to see them as the main pan-Atlantic conference, really focusing on the Atlantic Basin, or the wider Atlantic as we call it. And for this interview, I am very happy to have Nuno de Noronha Bragança, who is the coordinator of the Atlantic Center in Portugal. Nuno, thank you very much for joining us. And Fabio de Albergaria Queiroz, who is from Brazil, based in Brasilia, from Brazil, and who is notably one of the main proponents in the public discussions on the partnership between Morocco and Brazil. So this is your specialty. I'm very happy to have you both because, as we know, there have been a lot of developments recently on the Atlantic, particularly since 2022, actually, when the Atlantic African States process was relaunched by Morocco, but also when the United States started spearheading a process of pan-Atlantic cooperation, which led to the creation of the Atlantic Partnership, or the Partnership for Atlantic Cooperation, as it is also known. And amongst the initiatives that were quoted, particularly in the joint declaration of September 2023, the Atlantic Center was there. It was also there in the first joint statement. So it's one of the main pan-Atlantic initiatives today. But there was also the zone of peace and security of the Southern Atlantic that was rather spearheaded by Brazil. So I would like to turn to you now, dear Nuno. Could you please tell us more about the Atlantic Center and how it matches or it fits into this pan-Atlantic framework of cooperation?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, we start to think that the main issue that we need to have in mind is development, sustainable development, and on that we see how important could be it's already. How important is the blue economy and the Atlantic that we have in front of us? We are talking about food security, and we see the ecosystem, the marine ecosystem, and the fishery that we come from there. And we are talking about trade, and we see 95% of the trade across the Atlantic. It is important for what is normally say, if we don't have shipping, we don't have shopping. So it's something that is really, and then energy security, energy. And we are talking about offshore energy, gas energy, pipeline of energy. But at the end, also one thing very, very important for current economy, that is digital connectivity. And at this moment, the trade, the financial movements, and so on, it's by digital connectivity. And that could be really a huge opportunity, namely for the South, namely for Africa, namely for South America. But when we turn the page, we have a number of challenges, and I would like to use always when we turn the page, the challenges that are really common to the all Atlantic countries. And we are talking about pollution, of course. We are talking about climate change, of course. We are talking about conflict interstates, fishing, migration, illicits in the Atlantic. And now this is really complex in terms of legal framework, how they are transnational in the results that they try to achieve in this impact, and they are interdependent. But I want to say interdependent when you have conflicts, interstate conflicts, and during the morning someone talked about the Atlantic Center is really a space of problems of human security. Of course, we don't want to forget what could arrive, and we hope not. We have already so many problems regarding human security that we need to address. So the Atlantic Center create this community of interest to address this Atlantic community of interests regarding security in broad terms, and I can call human security, to address this, and putting all together to establish priority of action in a complementary way. And that are the three principles of the Atlantic Center. All of Atlantic approach, security in broad terms, and complementarity. But for that, and to achieve these objectives, what we have done, we look to three pillars: the political dialogue, and what we have done, political dialogues. I'm very happy to say in this moment that I formally received the acceptation of Mauritania to be member of the Atlantic Center, and I received it yesterday formally. I already know it, but formally yesterday, and we became 24 members. So we are growing. And we can always work, and this is one of my expression. It doesn't matter if you are in one organization or in another. The important that when you are together, we bring new add value to the discussion. You bring new ideas. You bring new platforms to talk. And then we have the think tank pillar. And the think tank pillar, I think everybody agree that if you don't know the things, you cannot change. So you need to produce knowledge to support the political dialogue, but also to understand what is the gaps and what we need to do in what is the support capacity building. And that's what we have done, continue to do, and most important on that is join also not only countries, but organizations that follow the same objectives that we have. And that is, for instance, the Gulf of Guinea Maritime Institute, that is, for instance, UNITAR. But namely, in last 27th of May, during one of our maritime security courses in Azores, we have a memorandum, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the African Atlantic States Process Initiative. And what we say, yes, we have a lot of political dialogue, we write fantastic papers, but we need actions. And we need to be pragmatic on that, because initiatives that spend too much time talking and addressing issues and don't have concrete actions that the member states see as benefits on this initiative, I think the initiatives tend to be freeze or not giving the right pace. And so this is the Atlantic Center, the enthusiasm of a lot of people, a lot of friends of the Atlantic Center already. And of course, I'm very glad to be in this the small conversation with Brazil and Morocco that you represent, because they are co-founders of the Atlantic Center. And are really this understand of there is a common issue that we need to deal, and we need to deal together. It's really, in my point of view, one of the mainstream of the Atlantic Center.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fabio, I'm turning to you now. As Nuno just mentioned, Brazil was one of the co-founders of the Atlantic Center, one of the first states to support the initiative. But starting from the 1980s, it also spearheaded the zone of peace and security in the Southern Atlantic, or Zopacas. And obviously, Brazil has a huge Atlantic coastline. It's actually the only ocean that Brazil has access to, and it's also a source of a lot of wealth, notably to oil, to energy resources. And therefore the Atlantic holds this importance. I would say there is also some sort of historic importance as well, because the Atlantic is what connects Brazil both to Portugal and to Africa, so two big elements of the Brazilian history and identity. So I would like to hear you about this perception that Brazil has of the Atlantic as an important I would say pillar of its projection or of its vision of the rest of the world as a potential canal and avenue for cooperation and collaboration with other countries. How does Brazil see the Atlantic?
First of all, Akram, my friend, I would like to thank for this opportunity to share this space with my friends, Admiral Nuno, that is a very good friend. We have been working together on initiatives for fostering this idea of an Atlantic Partnership. So thank you very much. Well, concerning your question, indeed, when we think about the Atlantic, we must understand our role in this space. We have here 3 region builders. What does it mean? Countries that by history, by economy, by military capacity, it doesn't matter. But we are countries that are connected to the ocean, to the Atlantic, and it's very important. In this regard, the most important strategic documents in Brazil in the field of defense highlight the importance of the Atlantic in our surrounding environment. This is space when Brazil see as very important for achieving its goals. Among us then, South America, the west coast of Africa, and the Atlantic, more specifically the South Atlantic. So it's key regions for Brazilian foreign policy, let me say. And in this regard, it's true, the Zone of Peace and Cooperation of the South Atlantic was proposed by Brazil, and it was supported by a United Nations resolution in 1986, and it counts on the presence in Latin America of Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. In Africa, counts on the presence of all the Atlantic countries except for Morocco and Mauritania. So it's a very good idea, but that needs to be better understood and explored. Why? Because I think it lacks a level of institutionalization. It's something that Brazil desires, that Brazil is working on, probably in the future to come, to have a kind of institutional structure to foster this cooperation over the Atlantic space. And let me say that I do agree with my friend, Admiral Nuno, when he say about the importance of sustainable development. It's something that connects us. We are facing some disruptive problems, like climate change. It's something that, to a greater or to a lesser extent, it affects all the countries in the Atlantic Basin. And again, it has been too much talk. It's time for action. Time for action, because it's good. And what is it? Where can we start to act? Here, I think the Atlantic dialogue is a very good space for debating ideas, sharing best practices on instruments of a good governance for this space. We lack this because we have some problems. We still have asymmetries on the North and the South Atlantic that may be a problem in the future. So we have to find a common ground, issues that connect us. And these initiatives that we're talking about, such as the Zone of Peace and Cooperation, of the initiatives that has been led by the Atlantic Center, isolated, they are just like islands, very good ideas. But we need bridges, connect them, to make all these Atlantic initiatives a kind of Atlantic archipelago where we can work together without these restraints that has been resilient over time.
Mm-hmm. So precisely by signing this memorandum of understanding with the Atlantic African States process, you have started experimenting building such bridges between the different initiatives. So in terms of operational application, implementation, what are the challenges that you see there, and what are the opportunities also, maybe the potential synergies that you can see between these?
Let me start for the opportunities, and because I like more to this sunshine side of the opportunities. And I think this momentum that we are living now, with an increase of conflictuality, with a huge situations that we have in front of us, these connecting these two initiatives I think it's really important, because we can complement ideas we discuss regarding the how to leverage the knowledge of a certain situation. So we cooperate because we have the same objectives. And how can we match these objectives in a complementary way? What we have done already, and that I think it's really important, that this the Secretary Permanent from the Atlantic, the African Atlantic States Process Initiative have been present in our discussions. We share with the Moroccan initiative, the plan of activities, for instance, of the Atlantic Center for 2025, to see how can we really take this together, but in the concrete actions. How can, for instance, the Moroccan initiative can jump in a project that is already going on and say, yes, we want in that 3 pillars that the Moroccan initiative have, namely, and once again, I start in a different way that you have in the initiative. I would start by blue economy. I would start by the sustainability and protection of the marine environment. And then, of course, political and security issues. That is a little bit the core of the Atlantic Center. And in that way, seeing, well, look, we are doing this. How can we together do it is better? Because together we do it better, for sure. And I think that is the opportunity of the to coming together and join these two initiatives, and then bring a large community for discussion, for reflection, for debate, and that I think is really important. Only to say, I would like very much, and I say that in Itamaraty, that Zopacas could make a memorandum of understanding with the Atlantic Center, because it's really bringing everybody together. And as I say, without touching sovereignty, the initiatives, it's in a complementary way. How can we do it? And I think if we do it together, we do it in a better way. It's not if we go alone, we go faster, but if we go together, for sure we go far. But it's using this. The challenge is always this political dialogue. And we need to have the ownership of the idea, ownership of the initiatives, to appropriate. And as I say, is not only to have the idea, to create the framework, the memorandums, the political declarations, to be, for instance, the Atlantic Center is already mentioned in the United Nations Security Council resolution for Gulf of Guinea. It's one from 2022, and so bringing this expression and look in all of Atlantic way, and because we have a lot of things that touch all the Atlantic. So I think the ownership, the sense of ownership, and another one is the harmonization. How can we harmonize it? And one of the discussion we have it here regarding, for instance, in the Gulf of Guinea, is how to harmonize some the issues, and that come from the IU fishing report that we have done, with all the countries from some of the countries of the Atlantic Basin that are members of the Atlantic Center, and Policy Center is one of the participants of this report, is as Brazil also, as how can we challenge this, and what level of harmonization we can achieve to address this challenge. And I think it's a lot of work about African Union. It's a lot of work of this kind of super regional institutions, but also the regional institutions, to see how can this go on.
So harmonization, very important word. Putting the effort, ownership, having consciousness. So here the political plays an important role, right? Again, I'm turning to you because Brazil is one of these Atlantic superpowers, be it in terms of, GDP, population, land area, or also coastline, and the importance of the blue economy, potential importance of the blue economy for Brazil's economy. Now, with the Lula administration, we've seen a renewed outreach towards Africa. We've seen more interest vis-à-vis foreign policy as an important component of policy making in Brazil. Do you see Brazil potentially playing this role of, let's say, locomotive, supporting these initiatives, contributing more, bringing the political impetus and drive, to come together, as Admiral Nuno rightly said?
It's a very good question. Thank you. First, let me say that I'm not speak on behalf of the government. I just research, so I can say the things that some people wouldn't say.
Of course.
Brazil has the potential to be this power you mentioned. And because I say Brazil has the potential to be, the Atlantic is very important for us. Brazil has the longest Atlantic coastline in this side of the Atlantic. Morocco is very important for Brazil, among us other things, because Morocco has the longest Atlantic coastline in Africa. And Morocco was the first country to recognize the independence of Brazil. It is important for us. We have connection. We have a city called Mazagão. That's our connection with Morocco. So Brazil is much more than soccer or football for someone, and carnival. And Morocco is much more than Casablanca, the movie. So why I'm saying that? Because we're trying to understand who we are in the Atlantic, how this ocean can connect us in a project. And Brazil is an important country in this endeavor. The Atlantic has been a key issue in the most important documents in Brazil in terms of defense. We have two main documents, the Brazilian defense policy and the Brazilian strategy policy. And both of them highlights the impact of the Atlantic for the Brazil and for the Atlantic countries. So it's very important for us, for our security. And likewise, the west of Africa. I'm saying that because Morocco matters for us. It's a very important partner. In Portugal, we are connected by history. We have not only by the Portuguese, the language, but by history and by the Atlantic. We have these common bonds that make us part of the solution for the problems that arise. And let me say that my friend Admiral Nuno mentioned the importance of this space, saying that the Brazilian Minister of Foreign Affairs has to have more attention, and I do agree, because, for example, we have some challenges, more specifically maritime piracy, the increasing presence of the transnational crime in the Atlantic. If you see the transnational crime dictionary, you won't find two words. You will not find two words: sovereignty and borders. We cannot say to a piracy, oh, look, you cannot go up there because it's North Atlantic. It's not South. No, it's a single space. And we have to understand this kind of thinking, because the problems are always one step ahead. We need to understand how to tackle this kind of problems. And one of the most simple, I guess, but important initiatives is to understand that we have a single space. Of course, the zone of peace and cooperation of the South Atlantic, Zopacas, is important for Brazil, but doesn't mean anyway that we cannot coexist with another initiatives for the South, for the North Atlantic, for example. So it's very important. And I do believe that Brazil has a role to play to understand how the Atlantic could be a strategic arena for peace and cooperation development. where we can share best practices to make this a peaceful place. It may sound quite simple saying that, because saying is easier than acting, but again, we need to do something because we lack of time.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Admiral, for joining us. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us. I mentioned you by your first name earlier because you are friends of the Policy Center, so I allowed myself to do that. By the way, I would like to mention, Professor, that you have a book that is coming up about Morocco-Brazil relations, precisely as a potential, corridor and axis of a transatlantic cooperation. And we look forward to further cooperation with both of you, and we are privileged to have you as guests at the Atlantic Dialogues, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for following us.